We don't always know right away why a story stays with us. Sometimes it's a pause, a look across a room, the moment someone chooses silence instead of comfort. That was the feeling when Anna-Mae Holloway's story reached us quiet, steady, and already carrying weight. Anna-Mae is a private investor who learned early how to live without noise. What makes her story matter isn't her success, but the people she chose to protect when no one else did. This is where she starts. I was standing at the kitchen sink when my phone lit up on the counter. My grandmother, Lillian, was at the table behind me, folding napkins the way she always did, slow, careful, like the world wasn't in a hurry. "Anna-Mae," she called. "Your phone's been buzzing." I dried my hands and glanced at the screen. My father's name sat there like it hadn't learned anything new in decades. "He's inviting us to dinner," I said. Lillian looked up. "Both of us." "Yes." She gave a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Then we should go." "We'll be polite." I leaned against the counter. "You don't owe him anything." She reached for my hand. "I know, but I don't want you carrying this alone." That was always how she spoke, soft, certain. From where we were watching, it was clear this wasn't about reconciliation. It was about control. I picked up my phone again and typed a short reply. "We'll be there. If this story feels familiar, stay with it." The details matter. The dining room felt staged, like it had been set long before we arrived. Candles already lit, place cards perfectly spaced. My father stood near the head of the table, laughing louder than anyone else. One hand resting on the back of Rebecca's chair. "There she is," he called when he saw us. My daughter finally made time. Lillian gave a polite nod. "Good evening, Thomas." He barely looked at her. His eyes stayed on me. "You look tired," he added. "Still doing that consulting work? Something like that?" Rebecca stepped in smoothly, touching my arm as if we were close. "We're so glad you came. Sit anywhere you like." We ended up halfway down the table. Lillian smoothed her skirt, then leaned close. "Just breathe," she murmured. "It's only a meal." Plates clinked. Wine was poured. Conversations overlapped in that careful way people speak when they want to be heard by the right ears. My father held court. Stories about meetings, about progress, about people who needed direction. "We're finally moving forward," he announced, lifting his glass. After years of carrying dead weight, a few people laughed, not loudly. Enough. Across from me, a man I didn't recognize smiled and nodded along. "That takes vision." My father grinned. "Exactly." I focused on cutting my food into small, even pieces. Lillian hadn't touched hers. Rebecca noticed. "You're not eating." "I'm fine." Lillian answered. My father glanced down the table. She's always been delicate. The word landed heavier than it should have. From where I was sitting, I could feel the balance of the room. Who spoke, who waited, who mattered. I reached for Lillian's hand under the table. She squeezed back once. Steady. The evening was still calm, but it was tightening. Dinner moved forward in that slow, careful way where nothing feels accidental. Plates were cleared, glasses refilled. Someone mentioned travel. Someone else laughed too quickly. My father stood up with his wine glass still half full. "Before dessert," he said, tapping the rim lightly. "I just want to say something." The room settled. Chairs shifted. Rebecca turned toward him, already smiling. He started talking about the project, about momentum, about how some people understood sacrifice and others just lingered. His words drifted, circled. I kept my eyes on the tablecloth, counting the small creases near my plate. "And family," he continued. "That's where it gets complicated." A few heads nodded. Some people know when to step aside, when it's time to stop being a burden. The word landed. I felt Lillian's fingers tighten around her fork. My father's gaze slid down the table, slow and deliberate. It stopped on her. Lillian's had a long life, he said, almost kindly. But let's be honest, depending on others isn't dignity. It's indulgence. The room didn't go quiet right away, a couple of nervous chuckles. Someone cleared their throat. Rebecca shifted in her seat. Thomas. He waved her off. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Lillian lowered her eyes. Her shoulders folded inward. Just a little. She didn't speak. Something in my chest went cold. I stood. My chair scraped louder than I meant it to. My father looked surprised. Anna-Mae. I stepped closer to Lillian and placed my hand over hers. You don't get to talk about her, I said. My voice didn't shake. Not like that. Not ever. The table froze. From the corner of the room, it was clear this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a choice. I helped Lillian to her feet. She hesitated, then stood straight, lifting her chin. We walked out together. No rush, no apology. Behind us, no one followed. The drive home was quiet. Lillian rested her hands in her lap, watching the streetlights pass. I kept both hands on the wheel, steady. Like that alone might keep the night from spilling over. After a few blocks, she spoke. You didn't have to do that. I did. She nodded once. I know. At home. She went straight to the kettle. Same routine as always. Water on, 2 cups out. Nothing rushed, nothing broken. I'm going to lie down, she said when the tea was steeping. You don't need to sit up. I will for a bit. She paused at the hallway. I'm proud of you. Then she was gone. I stayed at the kitchen table long after the tea went cold. My laptop was still in my bag. I didn't open it right away. I didn't need to. I already knew what I'd find. For years, I'd told myself I was being practical, professional, that the paperwork didn't care who my father was or how he spoke to people. I'd waived things I shouldn't have. Minor delays, sloppy reports, small misstatements that added up when no one was looking. My phone buzzed. A message from my father. You embarrassed me tonight. I didn't reply. Instead, I pulled the laptop out and logged in. File names lined up clean and familiar. I opened the most recent report and scrolled. Everything he'd asked me to ignore was still there. I closed the screen, slow and deliberate. Enough overlooking. Morning came early. I was already dressed when Lillian shuffled into the kitchen. You didn't sleep, she noted, studying my face. I rested. I replied. She nodded, sensing the shift in the air. That'll do. Once she retreated. I opened my laptop. The Cedar Ridge deal was bleeding. For months. I'd authorized Redwood Meridian to waive my father's technical defaults, missed deadlines, and minor accounting gaps. I had been his silent safety net. No more. I dialed Monica, our fund counsel. Good timing, she answered. The latest audit shows Thomas misused the interest reserves to cover personal debts. It's a material breach. Let's stop waiving. Monica, I said, my voice flat. Issue a formal notice of default. No more extensions. No more mercy. There was a sharp pause. Once we file the reservation of rights, it triggers the bank's cross-default clauses. He'll lose the bridge facility by noon. Send it today, by mid-morning. My phone was a graveyard of notifications. Rebecca texted Thomas is upset about last night. Let's talk. I ignored it. Then the official email started rolling in. Cold, clinical language non-compliance, covenant breach, acceleration of debt. From the outside, it looked like a routine financial correction. From where I sat, it was the sound of a $34 million empire losing its oxygen. Lillian appeared in the doorway with a bowl of soup, resting a hand on my shoulder. We didn't need words. The door was finally closing, and for the first time, I wasn't the one holding it open. The calls began before noon. Not from my father, not yet nhung tun hung nguoi. Thuong chi giao tiep qua kach ban bao kao kok huk. A senior loan officer from the regional bank called first, his voice tight. We've received the default notice from Redwood Meridian, per our intercreditor agreement. We're placing an immediate freeze on all future construction draws for Cedar Ridge. Understood, I replied, my voice as steady as a dial tone. The dominoes fell with clinical precision. In the world of high-stakes real estate, nothing exists in a vacuum. My father's $34 million empire was a house of cards held together by cross-collateralization. By mid-afternoon, Monica called back with the killing blow. The senior lender didn't just freeze Cedar Ridge, she said. They've triggered the cross-default provisions, because that project is stalled. They've accelerated the notes on his other 2 office parks. And since he signed unconditional personal guarantees, his private holdings are now fair game. I looked out the window. My father had spent decades building a foundation on pride and debt, never realizing I was the one reinforcing the concrete. Now, the floor was simply gone. My phone lit up. A text from him. What did you do? This is more than one project. You're destroying everything. I didn't reply. I went to the living room where Lillian sat, watching the afternoon sun. Everything all right? She asked softly. The truth is finally caught up to him. Grandma, I said. I didn't need to push the empire over the edge. I just stopped being the one to hold it up. The knock came just after 3 hard, uneven, and desperate. When I opened the door, my father didn't wait for an invitation. He stepped inside, his expensive jacket wrinkled, clutching a crumpled legal document like a weapon. Rebecca stood a step behind him, her eyes scanning my modest living room with a mixture of confusion and disdain. Anna-Mae, he barked, shoving the paper toward me. I just got a call from the bank. Redwood Meridian Capital is calling my notes. And your lawyer Monica Grayson is the one who signed the default notice. What kind of sick game is this? Lillian looked up from her chair, her voice steady. It's not a game. Thomas, it's an accounting. This is between me and my daughter, he snapped, then turned back to me, his face reddening. You've been working for them. You let this go too far. People trusted me. You need to call your bosses and fix this. That's what family does. I can't call my boss. Dad, I said, my voice dropping to a lethal calm. I am Redwood Meridian. I'm the one who's been waving your failures for years because I didn't want to see you fail. But family doesn't humiliate the people who keep them standing. Rebecca's eyes widened. The realization that the quiet daughter was actually the silent titan behind their lifestyle was a physical blow. You're choosing her over me, Thomas hissed, gesturing toward Lillian. Over your own flesh and blood, I chose her the moment you left my mother alone in chemo to build your empire. I answered. I chose her when you called her a burden at dinner. I didn't destroy you, Thomas. I just stopped being your shield. He stood there, waiting for the world to shift back into a shape where he was in control. But the air remained still. He wasn't a king anymore. He was just a man who had insulted the wrong person. The house went quiet after they left. Not peaceful, just emptied. Lillian sat back down slowly, adjusting the cushion behind her. Rebecca won't stay, she said, almost to herself. She already decided. I replied. A week later, the signs were everywhere. A notice taped to the gate at my father's office. Another on the front door of the house he used to call an estate. People stopped returning his calls. Not dramatically. Just less. One afternoon, Rebecca came by alone. She didn't sit. I need to collect some things, she said, eyes moving past me. My things. Take what's yours. She hesitated, then spoke softer. He told me this was temporary. I nodded. He tells everyone that. She left with 2 suitcases and didn't look back. Lillian watched from the hallway. Money makes promises it can't keep. She murmured. By the end of the month, my father's name showed up in places it never had before. Court filings, notices, smaller rooms with folding chairs instead of long tables. A mutual contact ran into me at the grocery store. He's consulting now, she said, lowering her voice. Short term? Hourly? That's good. I answered. At home. Lillian set the table for dinner. 2 plates, 2 glasses of water. She smiled at me. It's quieter now. Yes, I said. It is. Outside, the lights came on one by one, steady and ordinary. The evenings settled into a rhythm after that. Dinner at the same time. The news low in the background. Lillian liked the window cracked, even when it was cool. One night, she set her fork down and looked at me. You're lighter, she said. I feel steadier. That's better. We didn't talk about my father anymore, not because it hurt, but because it didn't belong here. The space he used to take up stayed empty, and nothing rushed in to fill it. On weekends, I worked at the small desk by the window. Fewer calls, better ones. Projects that didn't come with apologies attached. I stopped bracing for the next interruption. Lillian slept more these days. When she woke, she liked to tell me small stories, things from before I was born, names I didn't need to remember, moments she just wanted to say out loud. One afternoon, as I was helping her water the plants, she said, "You did right by yourself." I nodded. That mattered more than anything else she could have said. I've learned that my name is enough. Anna-Mae Holloway. I don't need to explain where I stand anymore. I don't need to earn space at tables built on fear. If you're still listening, thank you for staying with this moment. From our side, it's quieter now, and that quiet finally belongs to us.